In today's episode of Pushing Ink, we visit a world far too many of us already live in. One of stagnating wages, miserable, sometimes downright dangerous work environments, and the culmination of the two leading to generational despair. Nickel and Dimed on Not Getting By in America by Barbara Ehrenreich is one of those nonfiction pieces that have, unfortunately, withstood the test of time. Meaning while it was originally published 2 decades ago, with a recent reprint and new forward, it is still readily, sadly, relevant today. An author and political activist, Ehrenreich set out on a journey 20 plus years ago to better understand the conditions facing those trying to make ends meet via minimum wage employment. In particular, the ramifications of the Welfare Reform Act of 1996. As an undercover journalist, she began the journey by forsaking her otherwise comfortable lifestyle and obtaining employment as well as housing as one without a degree, disguised as a former homemaker returning to the job market. What Ehrenreich soon discovered as a waitress, maid, nursing home aide, and retail clerk trying to live on minimum wage is an endless cycle of worry, demoralization, adverse health implications, and so much unfortunate struggling more. I'll share a few snippets, including as a newly minted waitress at a meager $2.43 an hour plus tips, Ehrenreich dealt with a manager who preferred dressing down employees on any number of minor infractions. She writes, "I still flinch to think I spent all those weeks under the surveillance of men, and later women, whose job it was to monitor my behavior for signs of sloth, theft, drug abuse, or worse." Speaking of drug abuse, the author points out the apparent necessity of drug testing at several jobs she acquired, only to panic at one point after imbibing in marijuana. Something to note given the classism often assigned to supposed drug users. Why is it so often the poor, those toiling in minimum wage jobs, are required to pass drug tests? At one point, the same manager cites the state of a break room with a threat of its removal, giving it is a, quote, privilege, not a right. The lack of autonomy includes threats to search employee belongings stashed in the said break room. It's not so much the work, but the pitiful wage and constant abuse that moves the author to a maid service position, the company touting how many calories burned while dusting and vacuuming. Ah, yes. Isn't that why so many of us get a job? To keep our girlish figures? But first, the author must pass a personality test, not the first or last, during her undercover stint for an abysmal $6.65 an hour, a job that proves to be laborious and wrought with repetitive stress injuries. She also takes a part-time position at a nursing home to help make ends meet, resulting in a 7-day work schedule. It is a job that proves laborious and lacking in a decent wage, too. Of course, I'm skipping over the absolute minefield of finding low-income housing, resulting in deplorable locations, including a questionably safe hotel stay. The latter is actually a step up from her coworkers, forced to live with other coworkers, friends, or in one case in their van. I wish that were a joke.
First off, I am 35 years old, I am divorced, and I live in a van down by the river.
Other issues from cheap, off-time fast food to finding employment close enough to housing prove equally challenging. Eventually, is the inability to find low-income housing that nicks the experiment. The author's quickly dwindling cash and failure to secure secondary employment while employed with Walmart. Unfortunately, the ever-changing, evolving schedule left a second job out of the question. Now, I did find a few items of concern directed towards the author, including a dressing down of overweight individuals while she worked at Walmart, and there were a few instances where real life crept in, resulting in other unfortunate statements. Not to mention this was an experiment. At any time, the author was free to go home, unlike her co-workers who, for the majority, had no idea about her investigation. Maybe that was because I'm not so sure I could have kept the investigation a secret. Overall, Nickel and Dime is a tremendous but depressing read. It highlights how simply being employed does not solve all woes, not with single-digit wages. Further, it highlights how unskilled labor is a term used to justify poverty wages. And don't even get me started on the whole bootstrap mentality. It's been 20 years. Why has nothing changed? Will this book remain timeless? Let's hope not. What great book have you read? Share them in the comments section, and until next time, Keep reading, my friends.